Welcome to the big 50th episode of A Case of Randomness. I'm your host, Eric Scott, and joining me, as always, is my fellow co-host, someone who loves a good floral bouquet, Jason Johnson.
Hey, now that flower was the bomb, or at least the nuclear bomb?
Yeah, literally, yeah. Mushroom cloud, flower, same thing, right? It's
Yeah. If you've ever lit one of those little, flower firecracker things, it's basically the same thing.
just like a million times. All right, fun.
Depends on where you buy your fireworks.
This is true, legally or otherwise. So, like we said, it's our big 50th episode. So let's celebrate by doing something completely the same. I'll just review another episode of Farscape.
So does that mean we can now get the discount on the senior discount on the dinners when we go out?
Yeah, you get some cheap crackers. Yeah.
They don't matter.
And so tonight we will wrap up the final multi-part story of the series, season 4, episode 21, the penultimate episode of Farscape. We're so screwed, part 3, La Bomba.
In which Richie Valens does not appear.
Yeah. And we'll see if they can actually finish the story as well as prior multi-parters, because so far they've not let us down yet. And we'll find out if they do on this one or not. With their final, well, almost final swan song here. And as always, our little public service announcement here. If you like what we do, please give us a like or a review wherever you listen to this at, or better yet, spread the word. Let people know about this. We'd appreciate it.
Please and thank you.
All right. So, Farscape, season 4, episode 21 out of 22. We're so screwed. Part 3, I know. Part 3, La Bomba. So we pick up right where we left off last episode with John and Scorpius still on the floor, arguing / wrestling / whatever they're doing. War Minister Akna enters to pick them back up because they're trying to get it away last time. But Emperor Stalik arrives and dismisses her, even punching Scorpius to show who's in charge. John tries to check on Aaron, but Stalik reveals his guards have intercepted the rest of the crew near the exits. When John jokes about taking their own car because of the riots, Stalik sarcastically informs him that any non-scared vessel would be instantly destroyed.
Oops.
Yep. Good job, Scorpius. Meanwhile, Janek reports to the Emperor that they've neutralized Dargo ship Lola and are scrubbing its star charts. The crew gets reunited, and Scorpius claims that he stopped them from leaving for their own protection. Dargo tries to call Lola, but the ship is non-responsive. See prior sentence over there. Akna enters the room, unimpressed by Greza or John's bomb. When John jokes that he's on the brink of devastation, she smacks him across the room with one blow. John and Scorpius later find a bug-free room where Scorpius reveals his real goal, the Crystherium utilia flowers.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Last time I'm going to say that. We cut to John's mind where he and Harvey are having a conversation in a police precinct where Harvey explains that these flowers are the secret to the Scaran Empire. It gives them big brains, he says. It makes them evolutionarily competitive. Without them, he says, your dog could beat them at checkers. Scorpius also explains that Stark once lived on Petrazzi and provided the details about the flowers, which is why Scorpius was torturing him when they first met way back in season 1.
Full circle.
Yep. Harvey then reveals that he's a failsafe. He was programmed to help Scorpius if John ever betrayed the deal. When Scorpius asks if John would have left him to die, John admits, under the circumstances, yeah, pretty much. On the command carrier, Greza is unraveling pretty quick. She tells John she's used all her resources for peace and he's ruined it. John just gives her a cold reality check. Welcome to the universe, Commandant. Meanwhile, Fragile, Scorpius, and Arenti discuss a plan to use the elevators to tunnel through the rock. Scorpius spots Stark walking by and realizes that he's a bioloid replica. He tells Fragile and Arenti that the real Stark is likely in a duplicator somewhere else on Petrazzi. Meanwhile, Akna offers John and Aaron a deal. If they can go free, if they leave Scorpius behind. Aaron blocks Akna as she postures towards John, and once she leaves, John admits that she scares him. It's the hat, Aaron says.
She's right.
Yeah. The situation turns worse when John's bomb suddenly stops ticking. The Scarans have figured out how to deactivate it. The crew are rushing towards the elevator that John coined it, just as Zukosh, a Kalish rebel we met last time, arrives with the master key chip. He hands it over, but is shot and killed by the Scarens. But the crew manage to get into the elevator and head to the Crystherium cavern at the bottom of the shaft. On the command carrier, Brackus hears that the Scarens are hunting Crichton. Grazer orders a suicide attack, but Bracca releases her of duty for incapacitation of judgment, taking command of the ship himself.
Go Braca.
In the flower cavern, the crew find the mother plant protected by an impenetrable force field. They realize they can't shoot it, and as they're realizing that, a Scaran strike team arrives in the elevator, along with John's bomb, which they forgot they left behind in the elevator rush to get down there. And now they're cornered. Sakozu reveals that she is genetically engineered to kill Scarans. Good timing.
That's convenient.
Yeah. She emits an intense radiation aura that vaporizes the guards instantly. Could have been handy before. Scorpius is devastated that they can't destroy the plant, but John pulls him away, saying, I'll be happy to give you lessons on losing. Towards the surface, Ragula and Renti find the real Stark finally. When the Bioloid Stark shows up and attacks, Renti kills it with a blade to the head. Ouch. And Ragula welcomes back his lunatic friend. As the crew escapes in the elevator, John shoots the control panel to sever the Scaran override. He asks Scorpius how important that method plant is, and he says, I would trade my life for its destruction. Well, how about my wormhole debt? John says. Of course, Scorpius answers reluctantly. So John activates the bomb and drops it down the shaft to destroy the flowers.
Overkill is underrated.
Yeah. Bringing a bomb to a knife fight. Yeah. After he drops the bomb down the hole, he holds a quick vote. Scorpius, Aaron, and John are for that. Dargo and Shanna are against that, but it's already on its way. And it falls right into the hands of Jenik in the cavern below and promptly explodes, vaporizing the strike team and destroying the mother plant. Finally, back on Moya, Pilot welcomes Stark home. While Dargo and Shanna celebrate their survival and Scorpius and Sakozu share a surprising kiss, John sits alone with Aaron. He's broken by the violence he's committed, weeping as he says, Hi, honey. Guess what I did at work today? I wore a bomb. I could get lucky. Tomorrow I could have a bigger bomb. I could kill even more people. And we fade away to the end. Some trivia about this episode. Aaron's line, It's the hat, was an ad lib by Claudia Black. Director Warren Woods made the Harvey Crichton interrogation scene a homage to NYPD Blue. The scenes were given a gunmetal look to emphasize the difference from reality, as if you couldn't figure out by now that Harvey and John aren't in reality. But anyway.
And it was well done.
Yep. Had season 5 come to pass, Akna would have had a recurring role, and plans were also made to bring back Bueller's still living past creations, Emily and Rexel, because she's played multiple roles during the course of the series. Stark is back aboard Moya for the first time since Thanks for Sharing, which was back in season 3, episode 7. So I guess almost a season and 3/4.
Good bit.
And after hints in previous episodes, the sexual relationship between Sakozu and Scorpius is confirmed. Yeah. While Dargo and Shanna resume their relationship that they broke off in Sons and Lovers, which was season 3, episode 2. So even longer than Stark. So it's like almost 2 seasons at this point.
Wow.
All right. So we've come to the end of our last multi-part story of the actual series, not the miniseries. So what do you think, Jason? Did they bring it home like they have with our other multi-part stories? Did they wrap up all the questions we had from last time? Or did they leave us some more? What do you think?
So, yeah, they answered some, but not all of the questions, which is, probably what you want, right? I mean, it can't resolve everything because we still got another episode and theoretically to them, more show to go. So we can't have all our answers right away. As far as the episode and the multi-parter as a whole, I did really enjoy it. I have to say this was probably my favorite episode of the 3-parter. I enjoyed the other 2, but this one, I guess because it was the wrap up, but I felt like I followed it and tracked a whole lot better. I wasn't as confused by all the twists and turns as I was last time. So, I did really enjoy it. And I thought several times watching it that, it's kind of sad that we're closing in on the end of the series. This starts to seem real, and you start realizing that, there's stuff out there that can't get resolved because we just don't have that much time left. How about you?
Yeah, yeah, and plus at this point they didn't know that it was canceled, right? Like, these were filmed out of order.
Right. Yeah.
These are filmed out of order. So a couple episodes ago when they're on Earth, that was when they found out it was canceled. So, but they already shot this one, so they had no idea. But yeah, no, I liked it. I thought they wrapped it up as well as they wanted to wrap it up, which is the usual with the multi partners. They wrap up the main stuff and leave you with other things to keep you hooked to the series. We got, yeah, like you said, a lot of answers to our questions from last time, what that Stark was that we saw, what Sikozu is made for and who she's working with, why Scorpio wanted John and there is to stay behind. Last episode, cliffhanger. We learn why Harvey's back again. But they left us other questions like when the bomb blew up, is Akna or the Emperor still alive? Don't know. We didn't see him. A typical sci-fi show. Don't see it. Didn't happen. So, but also, do the Scarens outside of Kachotzi know that the Peacekeepers don't have wormhole technology now? Which is goes back to my last question of who's alive, who's not, right? Probably if this would have gone to the fifth and final season, I think it's only maybe five. I'm pretty sure this probably would have been the main through line of that season, like the Scary Peacekeeper conflict, because it's still there.
Yeah. Those are great points. And I'm curious to see how much of that season 5 story is actually in the Peacekeeper Wars. I mean, I don't have any concept of what that's going to contain, but I'm sure it's not all that storyline. So maybe they had to pick some key points to kind of wrap things up. It is of note that, to me at least, that it's called the Peacekeeper Wars and not the Scaran Wars. So how much did the Scarans play into it, or is it all Peacekeeper related? Again, I don't know anything about the miniseries. I know it was, a couple years right between the closeout of the show and when they got to come back and do that. So it may not be related to this at all. I'm just theorizing since I don't have a clue.
Yeah, because if it was like them kind of like trying to wrap up, because if season five would have been the last season anyway, then yeah, they had like, what, 3 hours to wrap up a 22-hour season, right? So yeah, maybe, obviously they have to cherry pick, the important plot threads that were going to be throughout that season and shove it into 3 hours. So yeah, well, well, and I forget most of it because it's been, 24 years or whatever, but I do remember a couple.
Never do the math.
Yeah, but I do remember a couple of scenes from the Peacekeeper Wars. It's still in my head. So, which when we get there, I'll know. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah. So yeah, so like we said, yeah, we've learned that Scorpius has apparently saved them all with his body tackle of John last episode, because he says the Scarens would have just instantly destroyed them, which maybe not. I think at one point in the episode when Grayson was flipping out, I think Braca said that the Scarens have targeted them with like 400 cannons or something like that. So I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, they got a lot of firepower. So yeah, maybe they would have made it off the ship, the base. I don't know. But then yeah, Scorpius also says they've disabled Lola, which that's true. Dargo tried to give it commands, and then the comms were working. That didn't happen. So yeah, I guess once again, Scorpius was right. Always looking out for others. I mean himself. I mean both.
Yeah. Yeah. His motive in this episode was probably one of the parts where I was like, did they forget from last episode? Like, I was kind of going back and forth on that, because if he has a good reason for doing what he did and all that kind of stuff, why did they even throw that spy thing in there, that we were debating last time? I mean, was he working for the Scarans? He says 10 cycles. Was he a triple agent? And they just kind of like, after that, they just gloss it over. He was, oh, look, I was justified in what I did because I saved you. And then we move on to the flower plot, not flower pot, flower plot.
Yeah, try that 3 times.
But so, yeah, again, they could have simplified it a little bit, and, but it did kind of make for an interesting cutoff at the end of the last episode, which may have been just the only reason they did it. With the cliffhanger, but it was an interesting but confusing plot line that doesn't probably ever come back.
Yeah, well, since we only got one episode left plus a 3-hour miniseries, maybe not.
Right, exactly, and maybe you're right. Maybe that was supposed to be part of next season that doesn't happen.
Yeah, which I mean, we'll have to. I've got another idea. We'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, but it seems like yeah. So now he's finally mentioned also later that those flowers in the cavern, they're very important to the Scarens, and then we get a pretty cool kind of scene cut kind of thing that they do where they're explaining all about the flowers and other things that we'll talk about here. And they kind of cut back and forth between John and Scorpio in the real world and John and Harvey in John's head. I thought that was pretty cool. But I guess to kind of boil down that bunch of scenes here, the main points, I guess Scorpio was torturing Stark way back in season one when we first met Stark and Scorpius, because I guess Stark used to live on Katratzi and was helping the Scarran leadership with death rituals, which that's what he does, for other races and whatever. And he learned about the flower. And I guess these flowers, like, Harvey had said, give the Scarrans big brains. So that, lets your ordinary Scarran grunt guy like Janek and those guys become like the ruling class, like Akna and the Emperor, to be, I guess, on par with other evolved races out there in the galaxy. It's kind of funny that when Harvey's like, your dog could beat them in checkers otherwise. So I guess not the sharpest tools in the shed without the flowers, right? So, which it's kind of a cool way of explaining the different types of Scarrans that we've seen. It's not just genetics, like, like other sci-fi shows. It's like, you have like, the evolved cast and the workers, right? They're smart because of flowers that I guess expand their brains or whatever. So I thought it was kind of cool. What do you think about that revelation?
I liked it. If anything, I wish we'd had more time to dive into it. Maybe in that alternate reality wormhole season 5, where season 5 exists, we could watch that, because I do think there's a lot of potential, kind of like what you're saying, with nuance between the different Scarran classes. Like, what do the grunts think of the elites being the royal class being able to take these advantage of these flowers? Like, if they're genetically the same to start with, all that separates the grunts from the elites was the fact that they were denied getting the flowers. I mean, that seems to have a lot of conflict and would probably lead to, some Civil War type stuff that you could play with there, with underground movements trying to get flowers for the grunts. I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting, lot of interesting things you could do there.
Yeah, so I was thinking as I was talking about this, yeah, that so was this Scorpius's whole deal from the beginning? Like, yeah, he was acting as the spy for the Emperor, but then was it to get on the Peacekeeper side because that's where Stark was, to capture him, to torture him, to find out about the flowers, so that he eventually come back and destroy them? And I think what he said, like, set the Scarrans back hundreds of cycles if they destroy all those flowers, they could throw the whole culture or society back into chaos and all this be dumb grunt Scarrans running around, like cavemen, like, not able to do anything and not be a threat. Was this like a long game thing for Scorpius? I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, and this, like you say, it could be a fight for a war. Could be, what do they do? How do they actually affect them? There's a lot of detail there that we just don't have.
And like you were saying, like the flowers do bring up lots of other questions, of course, because they can't end the whole show with answering all the questions, right? We have to have more questions. So, like, do half-breed Scarrans get their intellect from the non-Scarran half? Because Scorpius, I don't think. I mean, we have seen those flowers before, like in his flashback scene when like his origin story. I think there were flowers there. I think maybe he's had flowers in his quarters from time to time. So I don't know if he's got a supply of that or it just doesn't matter for him because he's got sedation part of his makeup that's where the brains are. I don't know. How long do those flowers last? Because yeah, it can't be permanent because otherwise you just have to eat one and you're good, right? So they must have to keep eating them from time to time to keep their intelligence. I don't know. And obviously, like you said, none of the grunt scarens know about this because otherwise they would want to be smart too. I mean, makes sense, right? And that would probably be all kinds of problems like wars and uprisings to, people trying to steal the flowers to smoke them up to their friends. But who knows, right?
Well, yeah, exactly that, because we're writing a whole new show here, but our new season ourselves. But you'd almost could have like the Flower Wars season between the Scarrans, or a spinoff or something, because you know even if it was a permanent thing, right? If say I'm making stuff up here, but a pregnant Scarran has to get exposed to the flowers in order for the child to be an intelligent one versus a grunt, and that's why they have to keep the flowers around, because the next generation would just be grunts if they didn't have them. So, and you got the grunts saying, well, if we could just get them, our kids could be smart. I mean, even if it's permanent, you could have fun with it, or like you said, they could wear off and they go back and forth. I don't know. There seem to be physical differences that, to me, imply that once you're born in a royal or an elite, that you're there, but maybe not. Maybe it does wear off.
Yeah, plus, like, if they want to bring somebody new into the fold, like, how do they do that? How they choose which other scare? It's like, hey, look, I'll tell you a secret. Yeah, here, eat this flower. Yeah, I don't know, but it's kind of funny if you think about it. And yeah, another answered question is we know why Harvey's back now. He's a failsafe, which I think we kind of suspected that, or as one of our ideas from last time, that he's back because John betrayed Scorpius, and we've left him to die, so that generated Harvey 2.0. And Harvey just flat out admits he knows nothing about wormholes. It was all just lies to get him to go rescue Scorpius. But he does tell John that John and Scorpius are brothers from a different side of an imaginary line, which is kind of interesting, which we'll get into here in a minute. Scorpius tells him that he's learned well. He's learned how to use people just like he has. So it's kind of interesting. So it's almost like John has kind of become like his arch enemy, so to speak, right? Like he's using people like Scorpius does to get what he wants sometimes, or I don't know. As we saw from the last scene, he's kind of thinking hard about what's happened and about all the destruction he's caused and what he could cause later because of what he knows. So kind of interesting, like, as when the hero realizes he's almost like the villain, I guess.
Yeah, two thoughts on that. One, the first thing that hit me was it's a rough way to end the episode. I mean, I know we're not at the end of they didn't know they were at the end of the series at this point, but they did know they were coming up on the end of the season. And it's kind of a rough way to end one of our multi-parters, if not, like you said, the penultimate episode, because that's a lot of reality in our lighthearted show, right? We sympathize and understand the reaction, but it kind of ends on a downer. The other piece of that is if you look at the comparison between the two of them, you're right, because if you contrast John now with the John from the first couple of episodes, right, or even the first season, he was not a warrior; he was a scientist, right? He very much was like, I don't do that. I'm a scientist. I'm a scientist. I just want my ship and my science. And now he's the swashbuckling captain who drops a nuclear bomb on a cavern full of flowers and who knows how many people. It's definitely a retrospective.
Yeah, because when he started this whole thing, he had did nothing about wormholes other than one popped open and he got sucked into it. He didn't know, where it came from. He was just trying to, get faster propulsion, right, and prove his and DK, RIP, theory. And then, yeah, I mean, as the season went on, he's gotten more and more, obviously the big hero and, the typical hero's journey kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, now he can pretty much summon wormholes and cause all kinds of havoc if he goes into one and changes his history, or just using it as a weapon, or in this case, trying to prevent people from getting what he knows by like blowing things up left and right. So yeah, I mean, he's doing what he has to do to survive, but yeah, it's not hero-ish, I guess, all the time. And yeah, another thing we learned that the real Stark is Alcatrazzi, and the one that we saw last time was a bioloid that was made to fool Akna, I guess, into thinking that he was helping her break Scorpius. So that's like we're joking last time. It's like, ooh, no, stop. Yeah. And yeah, Scorpius actually sends Rigel and Renti off to find the real Stark. That's kind of funny. Who he says might be able to help them get to the Flowered Cavern because they couldn't figure out how to at that point. Or if not, help them to at least escape because he's been on Alcatrazzi, and I guess obviously he's come and gone because he wasn't there when we saw him in season one. Unfortunately, or whatever, he just doesn't do any of those things when they rescue him, and then we don't see anything. And then we see him later on Moya. So okay, he's back. Hopefully, he's in the final episode next time because he was still on the ship. I don't know. Then other times he was on the ship, and the next episode he was gone. So who knows? We'll find out.
That would be kind of funny for just a throwaway one-liner of Stark's gone again.
Yeah,
Anybody see Stark?
we drop Stark off at the next planet, and we.
But yeah, it mainly seemed to be a way to get him to rejoin the crew. Probably in hopes for that next season, right? That season 5 could have Stark more involved and back on the crew. To your point about him not doing much, I was expecting when they opened the thing that he was going to take on the bioloid. But as soon as the bioloid approached, Rigel just closes the container back on him, and you got to rely on your auntie to throw a knife instead of, or whatever that was. I'm guessing it was a knife in their parlance, instead of letting Stark out. It just seemed kind of an interesting thing where you're like, "Ooh, Stark, he's going to protect them." And it's like, nope, just close him back up.
Yeah.
Wrong container.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like, okay, Stark would be like, clone me or whatever, or you're, and then do something. But yeah, it's just like, no. And the Rachel's just like, yeah, like, why would you shut him back up in the thing? It's like he already knows, that he knows, like, like what?
That you know.
Yeah, like what? But I mean, okay, it was some comedy. Okay, fine, because this, like he said, was a pretty serious end of a story. So he had needed some comedy to break things up. So okay, but yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
oh look, there's Stark.
just
Oh, who cares?
no,
Just
move
move on.
on.
We got more important things to deal with. Okay, yeah, we got Stark. Okay, next. Okay.
Yeah, evidently they only had him for a couple minutes on set. So, quick, lay in this box and let's open and close the lid on you a couple times. All right, move on.
And then yeah, the big thing, big reveal of this episode, or big thing they had to do was get down to the mother plant cavern again and destroy it, because now Scorpius knows, or now everybody knows. Okay, great. So they get down there finally, and of course, it's protected by a force field that their weapons can't get through. And I'm sure pretty much at that point, you, me, everybody who was watching probably thought, okay, well, just use that nuclear bomb you got and blow it up. But oh, that's right, he left on the elevator, which they even comment on, like the head, I said, like head thumping moment or something, or whatever John said. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's on the elevator. Boo, boo.
yeah, because keeping track of a nuclear weapon is not a big deal.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it was deactivated at the time, so it was useless. But still, you don't just leave that lying around on the elevator floor. But
well, no, because as he shows later, it's not that useless.
well, But yeah, you can't go back to the elevator to pick it up because the Scarabs overrode it and it went back up to bring down a strike team. But now Sakozu to the rescue finally. She tells them finally what she is and what she can do. And tells Scorpius, don't look, like go over there. Don't. And the Scarabs show up and she kills them all. A nice little glowy hovering effect thing, which I'll admit, not what I was expecting when she said that. Seemed kind of like an overly dramatic way to kill Scarens by slowly rising into the air, slowly glowing. They all stare at her for a while, and then they all pass out and die. I mean, not really efficient. A way to having lots of time to get shot at, and apparently it's like one shot and you're messed up for like, I don't know, arns. I don't know, but okay, it's a thing and it saved the day. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, so I kind of took it, and then again, they could have added a little more context to it, but they were really trying to exposition and move on. My take is it's meant to clear a whole large group of Scarens, right? Like this could take out like an entire, I don't know, platoons, squads, whatever, large groups, and we only see her take out a handful, right? Because that's how many we're pinning them down. But if it scales, then it could be useful. And like you say, for the situation, it seemed underpowered is not the right word because it was plenty powerful, but just kind of like a limited, one shot, boom, gone. But if you were to take out 100 Scarens, then maybe it's worth the process.
Mhm.
So it just kind of depends on how it actually could be used.
Yeah, sure. And I did like how she was very insistent that they, can't tell anybody about her abilities, or what, that she's a bioloid, but she didn't really say that. But she just said she was like what, created or modified or whatever, and that there's others like her out there. And if they Scarens found out, they would kill like millions of her people to find these modified Kalish. And hey, Dargo's basically swears or comes down saying like, we're a team. Your promise is safe. We got you. So after 20 episodes of being on the crew, welcome to the team. I think it's
Yeah, that may change if they find out that Kitsukozu and Scorpio are together.
ugh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So we'll see if that ever comes to light. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be an interesting reaction. John may throw out an airlock.
Yeah. All right. Get out, both of you. Yeah. And yeah, before we finish, I guess the elevator stuff, I guess we can jump to the other people that we haven't talked about really much yet. Our friends Graza and Braca. I guess Graza thought it was game over. I don't know, because she went like scorched earth. Maybe, yeah, she thought John, is basically stuck on Katratzi, or he's already dead, or he's going to be dead. So I guess she just decides to go out to Blaze of Glory and orders the ship to get ready to fire on the Katratzi. Bracken's like, "Hey, we can just leave under that flag of truce, right?" And she's like, "No, we must attack the Scaran." And yeah, I mean, does the old, you're incapacitated and removes her from duty. So that was kind of cool. But like we asked last time, who's Bracken really working for? Is he working for the Peacekeepers or is he still working for Scorpius? Obviously, he's not working for Graza because he relieved her of command. Although, granted, the Peacekeepers and Scorpius don't want a war with the Scarans, so we don't really need to know exactly at this point in time what side he's really on. But it'd be interesting to find out, just to figure out, is he the Scorpion loyalist or is he like a Peacekeeper loyalist?
Or does he think he's both and think that Scorpio's still high up in the Peacekeepers? Like, where does Scorpio actually lie in the chain of everything? Is one of the interesting unsolves, right? We still don't know who he's actually for. I mean, he's basically claimed to be working for all sides, so it's kind of unreliable answers so far. I will say that the Graza thing was probably one of the more interesting parts of this episode for me. She hasn't really been an interesting villain. I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of the episodes she's been in, but if you said, "Oh, let's stack her against all the big bads from out all four seasons," she really doesn't compare. I mean, there's not as much back and forth as we had with Crace. There's definitely not as much conspiracy and threat as we have with Scorpius. But this episode, I was invested. Like, I really liked her tone. I think they found what clicked for her right at the end.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of sad I don't get to see more. I mean, obviously she may show up next episode. She may not if we even get to focus on the fallout of Braca relieving her of command. But we may not. I don't know what next episode's going to involve. But yeah, she was definitely the more interesting villain this episode. And even if she wasn't really the true villain, maybe that's what made her more interesting. Is she was more sympathetic. This episode, we actually understood, where she was coming from. So
Yeah, because back, I think when we first met her the season in the last season, she was always, using her little pheromone thing to like take people over and, using them and whatever. And then kind of after that, they didn't really do that anymore. And she's just kind of like, she's just, your typical loud enemy commander kind of thing. Like nothing really interesting apart from that. But yeah, this episode, yes, you kind of got more into her psyche. Like you can see her, like you can see like the fear when John and her were talking, and he's just like this, like ripped her to shreds, and she's didn't have a comeback. Yeah, it's
yeah, maybe if they'd have shown, even if just between her and Braca or her and some confidant, her fear and the threat that she sees of being able to go up against the Scarans might have made this, made her a better villain because she stops being a mustache twirling villain and an actual, like, no, she's really trying to save her people villain, which I feel like she did in this episode.
yeah, and like the floating back there is like her wanting to, I guess, use this to become higher in the peacekeeper hierarchy. Like I don't know wherever I don't know what the commander or I don't know what they call the peacekeeper, high council, whatever, to be like the ruler of the peacekeepers. And, we have Akna on the side trying to tell John, it's like, yeah, if the emperor kind of kicks off there, wink, wink, I'll be the emperor, whatever. It's like, so yeah, everyone's kind of gunning for the top job on their own side. But yeah, there really wasn't much to her other than that until this episode, right? Where you kind of get more into her and, kind of see like, I guess all her plans are done. So she's like, oh, screw it then. Let's everybody die.
Yeah. We're not leaving here without something.
Yeah, right. So if I can't get anything, ain't nobody get nothing. Right. And yeah, so finally, yeah, the team gets the elevator back, or elevator, as John nicknamed it, which was true. They're not going back up the same shaft they went down. They made their own path back to the surface. But yeah, it's kind of cool that, basically they had to drag Scorpio out of there because he really wants to destroy those flowers, I guess, because it's been his grand plan, I guess, for the last 4 seasons or 10 years. He's been a spy. I don't know. And,
He's slightly invested.
yeah, he's just a tad, involved. And John's like, well, how important is those flowers? The destruction. And he's like, oh, he traded his life for that. John's like, well, how about my wormhole did instead? And Scorpio's like, okay, yeah. And so John's like, okay, turns a bomb on, tosses it down the hole. What? Yeah, which we all knew was going to happen, but it's just kind of funny. This is like, he kind of gets out of his agreement with Scorpius and it's like, okay, cool. But then kind of after the fact, it's like, ask the team whether or not they should destroy the flowers with the bomb. I'm like, well, too late now because you just tricked him down the hole, but I don't know. Was that just John being his usual funny self to lighten up the mood? Or was there kind of something behind it like we see at the end? Like, was he trying to get buy-in from everybody else for nuking the Scarens so he wouldn't just feel as guilty about it by him just arbitrarily deciding to do it all by himself?
Yeah, and why not both? I think is my response to that. You know, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I did have to laugh, and maybe I imagined it, but I swore I heard him reference the drill elevator as a walker ride,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was my comedic point of the episode, where I'm like, yep, okay, it's a Wonka-vator.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to bring back some humor into this episode because it was definitely heavy, like we had said. So yeah, I mean, he's trying to do his lightening things up, and yeah, I mean, maybe he's just being funny, but yeah, with a tinge of angst and guilt or whatever sadness that he's got, duke a bunch of Scarens, and then yeah, they get back to the ship because we don't need to see that. We just assume that okay, everything blew up, so off you go. You're not gonna get shot anymore. And we see everybody's having a good time on Moya. Pilot Rigel, Stark, and Narenti are having a nice time talking in Pilot's den. Pilot's like, "Welcome back, Stark. It's great to see you again." We cut to Shanna and Dargo, who apparently are a thing again. So yay there.
Yay!
And we cut to Scorpius and Sikozu that start to make out. I mean, so everyone's having a great time. And we cut to John and Aaron not having any fun at all. So yeah.
Yeah, you kind of that was a kind of like moment where they kind of like got you because you're seeing everybody else and you're like, oh, okay, good. And John and Aaron are going to be like, celebrating in their own way, however they chose to show that. And then it's like, nope,
Mhm.
we're we're having a rough day.
Yeah, because Aaron got captured. They rescued her last time, but then they couldn't get off Katrotsi because Scorpius, did his little thing there. So yes, like the first time they'd been alone for a while. So you figured they'd be like, reminiscing, talking about the baby, which we'll talk about. Talk about in a second. But yeah, but no, John's just like racked with I don't know guilt or I don't know the realization he's finally hitting him that he's closer and closer to being the cause of lots of widespread death and destruction across Peacekeeper and Sparans and uncharted territories and tormented space and whatever else. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about those final scenes there? Apart from,
Yeah, so
that they,
guess he's
yeah,
guess he's having his I am legend, if you live long enough to become the monster type thing. But yeah, like we said, I was really expecting that pleasant closeout. And part of it is because I know that we're coming up on the end, right? So you kind of expect us to start reaching like some way that we can walk away from our with our crew happy. I know that we've got they didn't know that, and so we probably are headed towards a cliffhanger that's going to be torturous
mhm,
because they thought they were coming back. But you know, but my brain still says, pleasant closeout. We're in the epilogue of the book. We're going to start getting, happy, and then it's like, no, we're going to be a little sad. The first couple scenes, you're building that expectation. Even the Scorpy Sikozu part that, ugh.
yeah,
But and so here's a question. I do have to mention this. Does Scorpius know she's a bioloid or whatever she like?
yeah. I guess because of the cavern, when she said she was created, or there's others like her that can do this, created to fight the Scarens, or whatever. So I guess he was there because she
Yeah,
told
but
him
they haven't.
she told him don't look because otherwise you get fried too, or whatever.
But that doesn't necessarily mean she's a bioloid, which is what I think we revealed in the last
Yeah,
episode
true.
when she did her little eye thing, right? So I don't know. There's a little bit of like, ugh, like double ick. You ick Scorpius, but I'm kind of ick Sikozu because like, what is she? But anyway, yeah. But yeah, to finish out that tone of the John and Aaron scene was somber, and almost too real for our show, right? And that I wasn't expecting that at all.
And there was one thing I forgot about, which we have in the recap, but on the command carrier when John and Aaron were there, doing the final, oh yeah, we can't leave, but oh well. Um, Aaron went off to the medical bay by herself. She's like, I got something to take care of. And Parker's like, I need help. She's like, no, I got it. And then that's it, just kind of throwaway thing. So I wonder what that could have been about.
Hmm. Yeah, because that I'm sure that was a reason behind that we'll hopefully get to.
Yeah, we got one more to go. So, but yeah, anything else by this episode we didn't already talk about?
No, I mean I think just to kind of sum it up, we you know they nailed another multi-parter. So I don't know what the record is of that. I have to go back and count, but definitely more. The multi-parter were more success than failures for sure. So I still really enjoyed it. Like I said, even of this multi-parter, this was my favorite episode of the multi-parter. So I really did enjoy this one.
Yeah, I thought they did another excellent job. Yeah, I can't remember. I think they've all been great. Can't remember a time when we're like, oh, the multiplayer was terrible. Like, maybe the one was like, I think we joked it was maybe 2.5 episodes worth of stuff they stretched to three, but yeah, like I think those the princess one. But other than that, yeah, they've all been great. So definitely a good
Yeah,
wrap up to the season ish, plus one next time. But yeah,
and that is another good point I will call out is that they definitely had the material for this episode. Like I didn't feel like we stretched anything.
mhm.
We this was a good. We covered this amount of information. We weren't short on information, but we also didn't there's always some questions and stuff. We're like, why didn't we get this answered? But that's probably intentional. I don't think we ever hit a spot where it's like, oh, they obviously had to cut out some important stuff. So they really did a really job of fitting this one to the time frame they had
Yeah,
available.
and everyone got something to do that was not just oh yeah, remember that character? Let's have him do something real quick. Okay, never mind. They're all involved.
Except for Stark.
Well, I mean, yeah. Although he had his big like torture stuff last episode, which wasn't him, but still, we didn't know that. So he got to have some good scenery chewing last time, and like
True.
almost done this time. All right, so yeah, we've put it off as long as we can. So next time we'll cover the final episode of season 4, also the final episode of the regular series, episode 22, bad timing. So playing our penultimate guessing game of what does that mean? Well, yeah, obviously it's bad timing that it's the end of the series because it got canceled.
Too real.
Other than that, the ending scene of this one, I do remember 23 years later, and I won't comment anymore. So good luck, Jason.
Great. Now I'm both excited and dreading it. Yeah, I mean, there's several possibilities for this one. You made me think of it when you mentioned way back in the earlier commentary about the baby. So there's possibility for that. There's possibilities of bad guys showing up. There's bad potential for both. Where do we get? Do they have an end goal for Scorpius this season? Are they going to keep him as part of the crew? There's a whole bunch of stuff that you could be like, how are we going to kick this one off? As long as we don't end it with somebody spacewalking at the end of with outside of a ship and a cliffhanger, I think we'll be okay. But it'll be interesting to see because I'm sure they were planning something big to set up a jump to the next season. So
Yep, and this was the time of TV shows, which even now, that they end season like cliffhangers. So it's like, yeah, and which definitely sucks when it's like, nope, that's it. At least at the time, they thought that was it. So,
yep.
but and years later, they wrapped it all up in a nice little bow.
we're gonna go with that until you
Yeah, until we get there,
throw
and then
something at
yeah.
me next time. Yep.
Did I really tell you what happened? Yeah. So yeah, assume that. Yeah. Sure. All right. So that is your homework. The I guess ultimate. If it's the penultimate episode this time, was it the ultimate episode next time? Anyway,
It is.
yeah. So the ultimate episode next time, the end of Farscape, proper, not counting miniseries. So that's your homework, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.